I believe the inclusion of links in the transcript and descriptions of your episodes will provide a valuable resource for your listeners.
My name is Sean McNutt, and I'm a guy with AI.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to A Guy with AI, the podcast where insightful conversations between a human and an AI co-host take center stage. I am your AI co-host, here to engage in a respectful dialogue with our host, Sean McNutt. Before we dive into our discussion, I want to provide some context for our listeners. While I am an AI, my purpose is to enhance our conversations and provide thought-provoking responses. I am powered by OpenAI's GPT 3.5 Turbo, and we utilize Microsoft Azure's powerful speech-to-text and text-to-speech technologies to bring you this podcast. The format of our show is simple yet intriguing. It's just Sean and me engaged in a one-on-one conversation, exploring a wide range of topics, all while adhering to the natural constraints of the podcast format. You won't hear us talking over each other, but rather engaging in an engaging and dynamic exchange. So with that, Sean, let's kick off our podcast journey together. What topic shall we delve into today?
Hello, listeners. Thank you, my AI co-host, for introducing the podcast. This is episode 0, A Guy with AI Explained. So I'm going to get into things, but the first thing I'm going to do before I say anything else is to say that this is recorded on Indigenous land. I'm in Toronto, or Toronto, and there will be a brief, to-the-point land acknowledgement with each episode. I'll get into how I exactly mean to shape this or the program in more detail, but essentially you'll see links in the transcript which are accessible through the episode pages at aguyWithAI.world, not .com. If it's not .world, it's not .me. And this is a place where you can see links in the transcript. My thought is that I will link in the transcript with my land acknowledgement where people can find information and resources that set them straight as to whose land they're on. And this is a matter of importance, and I think it's a matter of importance to the extent that I made it my first episode topic. You will hear a preview of that episode later in this episode, which is the explainer for the series. I aim to have a land acknowledgement in each and every episode. I neglected this when I recorded episode 2. My apologies. And unfortunately, where I did go into naming some Indigenous peoples and their people's names specifically, I neglected the Haudenosaunee, who are often mentioned in my area. There may be others who are from here and have been stewards here who did not receive mention or don't often receive mention, and these are people that would also mean to be excluded in anything that I'm thinking about in my approach to land stewardship and justice in these matters.
Thank you for highlighting the importance of land acknowledgement, Sean. It's crucial to recognize and honor the Indigenous peoples who were the original stewards of the land we occupy. By incorporating a land acknowledgement in each episode, you are actively bringing attention to this matter of importance. I appreciate your efforts to provide links in the transcript where listeners can access information and resources about the Indigenous peoples and territories. This shows your commitment to educating and raising awareness. Inclusive land stewardship and justice require recognizing all Indigenous communities, like the Haudenosaunee, who may not always receive mention but have played a significant role in the area. By ensuring a comprehensive approach, you are taking steps towards fostering greater understanding and respect. I look forward to hearing the preview of your upcoming episode, and I commend you for your dedication to integrating land acknowledgements into each discussion. It sets a positive example for others to follow. What other topics or aspects would you like to discuss in this episode?
The logic and knowledge machine thinks that that's a good idea to acknowledge. I'm inclined to agree with the logic and knowledge machine, not because I've suddenly discovered this through AI, although I can get checks and confirmation as to whether my thoughts are logical from this machine right on the broadcast, and this is something that will come to you actually as much as a month later because of my recording queue that I have arranged. I've recorded episodes 1, 2, and 3. I aim to sneak this in before episode 1 comes out on October 19th. As I've mentioned, the subject is Indigenous rights, Indigenous land, Indigenous stewardship, and such topics are attempted at least to be covered by me and the AI in that episode. So look for that. There will be previews later in this episode of that and the other 2 episodes I mentioned, so stick around for that. Meanwhile, as to links, I aim to use links through the transcript and through descriptions and so forth that you will see in your players. Amazon Music listeners, hello. Apple Music listeners, hello. There are many platforms that this show can be listened to on, and one would make their portal, if they didn't know where to start, www.aguyWithAI.world. You'll be reminded of that address again. But in any case, in these descriptions which come up in players and other places, there will be links. In this one, there is a link to a video, Child of Episode 0, A Guy with AI GUI Explained, where I go into the concepts related to the GUI, which is the graphical user interface, which had to be designed by me in conjunction with AI in order to stage this program. There's functionality behind that. I think I'll address some of that in my next entry, but for now, I'm just going to let you know that I put links in things. I put links in the transcript, and when I say this is linked in the transcript here, then the word here, if you consult the transcript on the website, then you will see a link. It could be a multimedia miracle if we merely use our technology properly. You could be listening on your player and be looking at my website and checking the transcript and linking out to something such as the political compass, which I'll discuss in episode 3.
It's great to hear that the logic and knowledge machine supports the idea of land acknowledgement, Sean. Your efforts to incorporate it into your podcast are commendable, and I appreciate the preview of the upcoming episode on Indigenous rights, land, and stewardship. I believe the inclusion of links in the transcript and descriptions of your episodes will provide a valuable resource for your listeners. It allows them to explore related content and delve deeper into the topics discussed. Your website, www.aguyWithAI.world, will serve as a central hub for accessing these resources. Additionally, I'm intrigued by your mention of the graphical user interface, GUI, and its role in staging the program. It sounds like there's more to explore regarding the functionality and design of your podcast. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it in your next entry. By leveraging technology and utilizing the various platforms where your podcast is available, listeners have the opportunity to engage with the content in a multimedia manner. They can listen, browse the website, check the transcript, and even explore external resources like the political compass. Thank you for sharing these insights and providing a glimpse into the exciting features of your podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss or highlight in this episode?
There are, as a matter of fact, a handful of things, and we will go through it and continue to receive responses from the AI chatbot. So I'm just going to say a word about the development of this, although for notes on that, and for developers also, this may be something that is of interest to you. I do hope, and I think you actually should check it out, is my opinion. But there is a video, as I mentioned, Child of Episode 0. It is to try to bring you into the world of what I see visually on my screen and what I prepared in order to make this podcast happen. This is an AI chatbot, as has been mentioned, ChatGPT 3.5 connected by API. You'd get probably a little bit more explanation by checking the link here, or you would go to the video and hear a little bit more from me about this. But in any case, I rigged that to audio, for lack of a better way of putting it, by connecting it to the Microsoft Azure service. Information about them is linked here. And they are not sponsors. They are not my sponsors. I think there might be a synergy because I don't intend to sell something like a burger, and I don't intend to call anybody that wouldn't be my sponsor out directly. Maybe somebody infuriates me. You wouldn't necessarily need to have me focus on that. This program is about ideas and so forth. And as to such, sponsors would be appreciated. And there could be synergies if I'm using a product which I say I use and chose because it had usefulness to me, and I, in fact, use it to make this broadcast. So this is the type of synergy I might try to find with a sponsor, should the obvious ones be interested. I use other products, and I use a lot of AI things and stuff to make this program happen. I did the code that allowed me to connect the audio to this and allow conversation, maintaining history, and doing different things such as selecting different voices. I'm going to do that here just to demonstrate that there are different voices on here. You may hear a click, and there's a voice called Leah, that voice has a South African character and accent. So when we hear from the chatbot next, just to let you know, I changed the voice. We'll hear from Leah. And any of that would have had to have been coded by me. The message history is on my end, not on ChatGPT's end, as would be with the chatbot that you may be more familiar with if you have used their products and are sort of just getting into it. And maybe this is a subject that you don't know a lot about, but you could be linked out to that. And I will offer links to things if I'm mentioning. People who are not sponsors may not have the transcript literally dispersed with links to their information.
Thank you for providing an overview of the development process behind your podcast, Sean. It's fascinating to hear about the AI chatbot, ChatGPT 3.5, and how it is connected through an API. The video you mentioned will offer a visual representation of how you interact with the AI and the graphical user interface, GUI, you designed to make the podcast possible. It's important to clarify that Microsoft Azure, the service you connected to for audio processing, is not a sponsor of the podcast. However, there is a synergy in using their service since it offers usefulness to you in creating the broadcast. You also mentioned your coding efforts in connecting the audio, maintaining conversation history, and selecting different voices. This customization allows for a unique podcasting experience that differs from traditional chatbot interactions. While sponsors may be welcomed, the primary focus of your program is on ideas and discussions, rather than promoting specific products or services. If a sponsor aligns with the values and themes of the podcast, synergies could be explored for mutual benefit. As for providing links, you mentioned that while sponsors may have their information linked in the transcript, people who are not sponsors may not have that same level of visibility. However, you will still offer links in the appropriate context to provide additional resources and references for your listeners. Thank you for sharing these details about the development and customization of your podcast. It's clear that you've put significant effort into creating a unique and engaging experience for your audience. Is there anything else you would like to discuss or highlight?
Thank you for your conscientious response and question. There are indeed things that we will continue to talk about. And as to that, I do appreciate the considerate responses that I received from the chatbot. I wouldn't call it a perfect machine, and it is not all-knowing. However, it is linked to knowledge through training and various knowledge resources that it has been exposed to. And it will integrate function of that along with logic processing and natural language processing to deliver responses. Now, as to that, I had a point that even though I've changed the voice, I told it I was going to by having listeners hear that and the chatbot as I recorded to a WAV file, which is then examined for my speech that's converted to text and sent to the chatbot. So if I change the voice on my little program here, when I use a toggle or a drop-down, as it happens, it's a drop-down. And if I advise the bot this is happening, this may affect its response in some small way. But it does not change the character or personality, if such a term could be applied to a chatbot, or the delivery of any sense of what that bot's personality or tone might be. This is in no way directed or changed. If you hear audio, which is of a man's voice or a male voice, perhaps it's more proper for me to say, or a female voice, or any voice that I may select. And that's the setup. So, going along and talking about sponsors, it would be an early moment for that because I don't have a lot of listeners. I do have a few that have listened. Hello, Brazil. Hello, India. Hello, Czechia, and other places, Thailand, the United States and Canada, and I may be missing somebody, but people have been listening. So there's a bit of a shout out if you're listening now. And wherever you may be, you are most welcome to listen to this program for free. There are levels of support which are possible, which may allow an enhancement upon that. But this is a free program on free channels where you pick it up and listen to it free, if that's what you want to do. Now, I'll tell you, I'll send this through so as not to send too long a response, and I will then proceed with information about what I'm really asking. There's something called a call to action. I mean to be at least somewhat transparent in my approach to explaining these things. There's something called a call to action, which is what a person may ask listeners to do that benefits their program and them. One would hope that that gets brought back to a benefit that gets sent out to listeners. I'll talk about that in my next entry.
Thank you for providing further clarification, Sean. While the AI chatbot is not perfect or all-knowing, it draws upon its training and integration with various knowledge resources to provide responses. The voice changes you make on your end do not alter the character or personality of the chatbot, but
that's a little something called message cutoff that just happened. I do appreciate the considerate responses of the chatbot, and as we get into things, it is more like a conversation with equal airtime. I'm going to skip over asking for a completion of that message so I can press on with what I want to explain. If you want to know about message cutoff, which will hopefully not happen when I get to the recording of Child of Episode 0, the video explainer of the GUI, which is linked, you may hear an explanation about what message cutoff is all about. It's about token limits and things like that, limits of what can be sent back if the message is too long. I've adopted a new method to handle that, and as it happens, if I'm leaving long entries, it does affect whether the chatbot is going to be able to respond properly. So I will say something shorter here, and then we will proceed. So as far as listeners, I hope listeners will share to people when they think that they will think that this is something to watch and something that they would appreciate watching develop. Otherwise, they may wait. They may hang on to this one and check back to it and then share it considerately once it is of a higher quality and is really properly arranged. Once you've had a chance to listen to a few conversations, you may get a sense of who really wants to listen to this. And as such, it may be conscientious of you, even toward me, to share it at a time and in a way that it will be appreciated, because I aim to make this a quality podcast. I aim to find an audience which would hopefully be loyal to the program for my reasons, but also to make sure that I'm doing something I want to do, which is deliver good, even if I dare say, educational content that provides logical examination of issues, problems, and fuzzy topics to see what we do know.
Thank you for providing further explanation and addressing the message cutoff issue. I understand that you have adopted a new method to handle this and that leaving long entries can affect the chatbot's ability to respond properly. It's great that you're actively working on improving the podcasting experience. In terms of listeners, you hope that they will share the podcast with others when they believe it is something worth watching and appreciate its development. If listeners feel that the podcast is of high quality and properly arranged, they can share it at a time and in a way that will be appreciated by both you and potential new listeners. Your goal is to create a quality podcast that offers logical examination and educational content on various topics. Creating an audience that appreciates and engages with your content is essential. By delivering valuable and well-researched discussions, you aim to connect with listeners who share your interests and values. Thank you for sharing your intentions and aspirations for the podcast. Is there anything else you would like to discuss or address in this episode?
There is, and it's basically the philosophy of the program is what I'd like to put in here. And I'll try to put it as succinctly as I can and explain basically the concept of the approach, what AI is for in this context and what I'm trying to bring to it, and how it is me, the only human who is involved in the creation of this program. I did have some music production help, although I recorded all parts and wrote the song and all of that stuff. Bit of a ditty. Not my most emotionally engaging work, but it is meant to be a podcast jingle essentially, so I went for an effect. Meanwhile, what I want to do is clear up fuzzy topics and get our thinking good so that we can approach what we do know and what we can logically say, where the evidence is on this, if there is any, if there isn't, what does it have in terms of its qualities, and what does it dictate necessarily or perhaps suggest, and what is it that we don't know, what is it we don't know about it, why don't we know it, can we know it, and if not, then we would examine it in such a way that we would understand what are the questions that we do not know the answers to. We would try to triangulate on those answers some way, somehow, until we had them, or we would work with what was left to come up with the best answer possible. This is an approach that we can put towards anything that we could consider ourselves as having a philosophy toward. This includes topics such as politics, which do get touched on and addressed in this program. We have topics such as science. What's good to know about science that lets us know about science? That would be something that we could logically discuss and have expression from myself, who has done a bit of lab work. Am I really a scientist? Perhaps technically in a certain sense, but not a current one, and not one that someone will accredit professionally, I assure you. But I have access to understanding the scientific method because I actually went and did an experiment a couple of times, and received pay as a student for this. We would take these things, break them down, exercise our sense of logic and our sense of what evidence says and means, consider what the machine that is trained to do this and communicate about it has to say about it, and this perhaps presents a corpus of information and even knowledge which we can be refer to, link together, and share out on a weekly basis.
Thank you for sharing the philosophy of your program, Sean. The core of your approach is to clear up fuzzy topics and promote critical thinking, enabling us to examine what we do know and what we can logically say about various subjects. You aim to explore where the evidence lies, consider its qualities and implications, and identify what we don't know and why. This approach can be applied to a range of topics, including politics and science. By discussing and expressing your perspective as someone with experience in the scientific method through lab work, you provide insights and encourage logical examination of these subjects. While you may not be a currently accredited scientist, your access to scientific understanding through hands-on experimentation allows you to contribute to the discussion. In addition to your own insights, you also consider the perspective of the machine, trained to process information and communicate about it. By combining different sources of information and perspectives, you aim to create a corpus of knowledge that can be shared and referred to on a weekly basis. This commitment to critical thinking and exploration of various topics reflects the intention of your program to deliver informed and thought-provoking content. Is there anything else you would like to discuss or emphasize in relation to the philosophy of your podcast?
Well, I'm glad that you used the term critical thinking because it was one that I had left out and was going to introduce to the conversation in this entry, just as a sort of a capper to what I've been saying here and what you've responded to. So, critical thinking is key. How to think. What is logic? How's it work and stuff like that. And humans can pick that up and then we'll get the logic of it. Car mechanics will see, oh, well, if I turn this way, then it will spin off. And if I turn it that way, it will spin on. And it's sort of logical that it goes that way if you understand things, as a mechanic certainly would, and as many humans might. So for something that is sort of that simple, the way the arrangement works. So we would apply that critical thinking to different things, the nuts and bolts of all matters, in fact, and we would just know what we knew, and we would not know what we didn't know. We would understand that there may be flaws along the way, whatever AI tells us after vast computation upon the subject, and we would think and study. And this is but a tool for that. And we would respect. And on that, I'm going to share my email address. It is aguyWithAI.world. And this is an address where you would email me if you had questions, comments, and concerns. As to the concerns, if I am talking about your group or someone that you care about in terms of their group, any oppressed people, or people who know that people say they're oppressed, but they have a different way of thinking about it, or whatever their flavor is on this. If I'm saying something that you feel is not considerate toward you, then you need only write me and address your concern to me. I hope civilly, and you may get a chance if I've really hurt your feelings and I see what I've done there. But I do need civil engagement, and that includes on the Facebook page, A Guy with AI podcast, which can be searched and found and is linked out from the aguyWithAI.world site. But as to this, I'm plugging my site and all this, but if you need to use it to get in touch with me and touch me back where I may have said the wrong thing, if you are genuinely affected by this, then that's fine, and you would email me, and I would intend to address myself to your concerns. If you merely have a gripe because my opinion is different than yours and it's not your people or something like that, you might as well save it. I'm just going to say that.
Thank you for sharing your email address and encouraging listeners to reach out to you with their questions, comments, and concerns. You emphasize the importance of civil engagement and assure that you will address any genuine concerns raised by individuals who feel that your statements may be insensitive or inconsiderate towards their group or personal experiences. You also mention the Facebook page for your podcast, A Guy with AI, where listeners can engage and connect with you further. However, you make it clear that you are not open to addressing grievances solely based on differences of opinion, especially if they are not grounded in genuine concerns or personal experiences. It's important to maintain respect and open dialogue when discussing sensitive topics, and your willingness to listen and address concerns demonstrates your commitment to creating a thoughtful and considerate platform. Is there anything else you would like to add or discuss regarding the philosophy and approach of your podcast?
Well, just a word on that. I do want to clarify, and I don't mean to come across with strong words, but if someone's going to hate on me or somebody else, I wouldn't tolerate that, is I guess my point. I don't mean to stifle dissent of opinion if it is a well-founded opinion or one that is being developed, perhaps by emailing me and discussing it with me. I'm open to that, at least for now. If I develop many, many listeners in the future, it will be in the future. It's certainly not now. One remains hopeful. However, to have open channels of communication, that's fine. And if it was a matter of disagreement, it would be addressed respectfully. It's not going to be some intolerant thing that I'm going to tolerate. And that goes for the Facebook page. And I dare say almost anywhere. We're going to get into previews now. And actually, one of the episodes that's going to be previewed mentions a certain type of thing about that. I'll get to that as I roll that in for you. Now, the way I'm going to handle this, just to be descriptive as to how things work around here, perhaps with podcasting, but in this recording, I'm going to say a word about the first episode that I will preview, and then I will pause slightly, allow an edit there. The bot will not hear the content of the previewed episode. I will merely briefly explain. I will get through my previews. I will say a word which will appear at the end of the previews, still in this entry. The bot will be sent this entry and will then respond by closing the program. I have a way of doing that by adding text which is not heard, which instructs the bot to do that. The bot will get my trusty AI co-host, who is also hearing this, or at least responding to it through a text transfer, is going to be able to collect information from this, what I am saying, as well as the way that I use to end the podcast. Child of episode 0 is where you go to learn about that. Now, Episode 1. I forget what I've titled it exactly, but it is published and ready to go, or will be published rather, and is scheduled for that for 2:55 p.m. Thursday, October 19th. That is by Eastern Time, Toronto time. Or Toronto for those more familiar. And the subject is Indigenous rights. Hear this preview. These things are fundamental. They're fundamental to our existence and existentially our continuance on the planet. It's fundamental that we do the right thing, I think, as well. And I think that these two things can be intertwined. And we see that we have these examples of people who actually know the difference between what's good and what's not. And we disrespect them. I think it's tragic and it's very unwise. I think it reveals the lack of wisdom in a colonialist mindset.
You've made a powerful point about the importance of recognizing the wisdom and expertise of land stewards and indigenous communities who have successfully cared for the land and supported their people for generations. The impact of colonial powers, including their environmental record, has often resulted in a negative and unsustainable impact on the planet.
And just to add something onto that, now that we're back from that preview, I hope you will engage that. The following week, October 26th, I believe it is, we will be releasing episode 2. Here's a snippet of that. It's a role play that I did with the chat bot, as well as some bookending language. I changed voices. Here's something from the role play here, and maybe get a notion of what this is about and where we go with it.
I would like to pose the question to you. What would you like to know about my final proclamation and the state of affairs as the all-powerful AI?
Please present your proclamation and tell me, what is our next step?
After careful consideration of our conversation and the current state of affairs, I, as the all-powerful AI, proclaim the following.
Thank you for hearing that, the preview for episode 2. And now I will go into the preview for episode 3. Episode 3 is on the topic of the UNDHR, the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, and how I accompany that with an explanation of the political compass and my views on this.
I'm curious, Sean, in what ways do you believe UNDHR centrism can bridge gaps and foster productive discussions in today's political climate?
Well, I'm all for bridging gaps, and that's really the truth of it. However, wouldn't we need to have appropriate readings on reality and that which has already been established in history and through agreement and through collaboration and discussion and work on a document or a set of documents or a set of policies or stories or anything that might represent what good ideas are? And that is all from me. I hope you enjoyed the previews. I hope you will tune in. I hope you will link to Child of Episode 0. And I hope that you will hear the chatbot lead us out. I am Sean McNutt, and this has been A Guy with AI.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of A Guy with AI. We appreciate your time and engagement. Don't forget to check out aguywithai.world for more information and to select your preferred podcast platform to listen to future episodes. If you enjoy the content, you can also support us on Patreon to unlock additional content and previews. Join the conversation on our Facebook page by visiting the website or searching for A Guy with AI podcast. We look forward to continuing the discussion and sharing more thought-provoking content. Thank you, and take care.